actually completely harmless. Look, she's actually a beautiful. Oh, look how gentle she is. Where's she gone? Well, I lost her. So this is Harriet, and Harriet is my friend, and she is a golden huntsman. And like all huntsmans, her bite is equivalent to the bite of a march fly or about double that. So if you ever get bitten by a huntsman, some stingos, or if it's really troubling you, a glass of concrete's a hard enough. No, I'm just joking. But they're not dangerous at all. Like, it's not a big deal. And the only way you get bitten by a huntsman is if you grabbed one in your hand and you pressed it down and it was feeling threatened. Even wild huntsmen almost never bite. The fact is, though, that more people are killed by huntsmen in Australia than any other spider through car accidents, heart attacks, and falling off roofs and ladders because they're scared of them. Let's see today if there's anyone that fits this category. Oh, we have a volunteer who'd like to hold the huntsman. She told me earlier how she was going to hold it on her hand. I'll get make her cry. Let's not do that. So these guys here aren't actually dangerous to us, but people's reaction to wildlife is. And it's crazy because, you know, we have this same issue with snakes where people freak out over a snake and end up getting themselves hurt or bitten unnecessarily. Or people freak out about crocodiles when we don't live in estuaries, so they're not a problem unless we go into those habitats. Huntsmen and most spiders in Australia, though, aren't actually dangerous to people. The only really dangerous spiders are the funnel webs and sometimes redbacks. But no one's died from an actual spider bite since 1978. On the other hand, animals like that in a region like this or in our backyard are such important creatures. And planting trees, especially mature trees, will have huntsmen living on it. One of the things I love is when we plant a tree, especially when that tree's bigger and older, that is a habitat for so many animals. From huntsmen to fruit bats to possums to birds visiting it, we've just created a whole biodiverse habitat in one plant. And that's such a great thing that we can do to help animals like that. But some of our animals don't live in trees. Some of them live in the creek.
What is this?
Like this one. This is Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim, baby long-necked turtle. Pretty cute, pretty small. He's only about 6 months old. And he'll grow about 20 times his size. So this tiny, he's a bit frozen today. I'm going to keep him in my hand. This tiny, he's not going to wake up. He's like, I'm going to hide my head from this cold and this wind. This tiny little baby turtle, these guys are found in the creek right here. But one of the really important things is planting trees and gardens like this actually helps these turtles in the waterway. And you're like, how? When it rains, if we don't have good, solid vegetation around our waterways, all the pollution, all the rubbish washes straight into our waterways. All the excess nutrients as well, especially in farming areas or even from gardens, goes into our waterway, creates algae blooms, and animals like this can't survive in it then. So having a really good vegetated area and native habitat around our waterways is important for the animals that live on land and for the ones that live in the water, because it also provides things like lots of leaf matter in the water for animals like yabbies and bugs and things that live in the water that need that decomposing vegetation. And then the platypus eat them, and the turtles eat those yabbies, and they eat those insects, and that's really important as part of the ecosystem. Now, turtles like this are a really, really common species around Melbourne, but unfortunately a lot of our little common species are becoming rarer. And kids, every time we go for a walk, if you pick up a piece of plastic and rubbish, you could literally be saving the life of one of these animals. During COVID, we actually found a turtle stuck in a plastic bag underwater. Luckily, it was still alive and we saved it. We also found a platypus where I live in Warburton with a hair tie around its neck. So those little things, if someone had picked them up, wouldn't have caused the issues. Luckily, both animals survived. But I've also found right across Victoria, from Mallacoota to Lakes Entrance to Benalla Winton Wetlands, we found seabirds and water birds with fishing lines and stuff like that that didn't survive it. So when we pick up a bit of rubbish, we're saving an animal's life. And we're making something like this awesome park look better and be healthier. So those are really easy things you guys can do, kids, to be wildlife superheroes. And that's one of the things we're going to learn today. You guys have already been wildlife superheroes. Look what you've done. How cool is that? And that will be home to wildlife in the next probably year to 10 years. And the different animals that are going to come and visit and use those grasses to make their nests and live in it, and the bugs that are going to live in there that provide food for our wildlife is going to be absolutely, oh, he's coming out, it's going to be absolutely awesome. Tiny Tim's woken up. Hey little man. So these are pretty cool little turtles. But one thing we've done today, by planting that, and I'm pretty sure there's been blue tongues seen in this garden, is you've actually just created a home for these guys. Is there blue tongues or any? Have you seen them here at this park?
I don't have any. Carmel might know.
I can imagine.
They probably are.
Across the road, they definitely. I've seen them across the road up on the hill. So these guys, this is Itchy, this is Scratchy. They actually get along. This one here is an eastern blue tongue. This is a blotch blue tongue. We get both species in eastern Melbourne. The more you get into the mountains, the more you get this one. The more you get dry woodland, the more you get the stripy one. Now, kids, do we touch these in the wild? No. Do you know there was a little boy at Diamond Creek in a kindergarten that picked one of these blue tongues up? Luckily, he was helping the teachers in the veggie garden. There was a teacher right next to him, and the teacher smacked his hand, not trying to be mean, but to shake the lizard out of his hand, because you know what he was actually holding? He was holding a tiger snake. Oh. And he was holding the end of a tiger snake. Luckily, the right end, the tail end. There's no right end to hold on a tiger snake, by the way. But this is why we don't touch lizards with stripes on them in the wild, because you might be holding a tiger snake. So it's really important we don't touch these guys in the wild. You can have these two little lizards, though, are found in our backyards around Melbourne. Although I grew up in a little town called Mount Evelyn. When I grew up, there was hundreds and hundreds of them. And we now almost see none at all around my house in Warburton, and that's even further up into the bush. And their numbers are declining around Melbourne. So planting lots of tussocks, lots of ground covers like we have today is really good. Not burning those old hollow logs, but creating habitat for them is really important, and rockeries, and keeping our cats inside where they belong, and teaching our dogs not to touch wildlife, which you can do, can really help our local species like blue tongues and possums and small animals that live in our backyards. Making sure we also don't use snail bait. So when I was a kid, Mum and Dad used pet safe snail bait, and then we no longer had a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. It wasn't pet safe at all. So really important, guys, to stay in our half circle. I'll come to you. There we go. So really important, when we use poisons in the backyard, like bug spray around the outside of the house to kill that one spider making messy webs, that kills the frogs and geckos and stick insects and other bugs. When we use snail bait, that can cause secondary poisoning with blue tongues and animals that eat the snails. For instance, bowerbirds love to eat snails, and if we use snail bait, they get it, and they get it into their stomach as well. Very cool. Yeah. Does anyone know the myth about blue tongues? Blue tongues apparently keep snakes away. That's rubbish. So blue tongues and snakes have no kind of connection. In fact, if you find a full-grown tiger snake, it would eat this blue tongue. So there's no such thing as an animal that keeps a snake away. But if you have blue tongues in your backyard, they are a pretty cool animal. They're pretty harmless. And the new law that was passed last year means that if you do have a lizard in your backyard, it's no longer allowed to be relocated. In the past, snake catchers were allowed to relocate lizards off property. Now, if you have a lizard in your backyard, it actually has to stay there. It has to live where it is because that's its home as well. So they've actually stopped people doing that, and they're not allowed to relocate them anymore because they're part of the local environment. Yep. Snakes are still allowed to relocate for safety reasons, but it's like relocating a lorikeet out of a backyard. You're not allowed to do that either because it's a native animal. So these guys are pretty cool, and they're a really good gardener. They get rid of the snails for you. So very awesome little lizard.
They're so cute.
So those are some of our smaller animals that we get in our backyards. We do have our little water skinks, which you find along Dandenong Creek here. So they're the southern water skink. But I have a relation to an animal that you find in some of these trees. Now, we don't actually have sugar gliders at home.
Oh, what's this?
Instead, I have squirrel gliders.
Oh my goodness,
This is
it's
Jupiter.
adorable.
Oh my
You
god.
guys can pat the softest animal in existence.
Goodness, Alexis, this is adorable.
Its fur is the
gonna pet him?
softest thing you'll ever touch in your entire life.
You
and
need
it's
to pet
redonkulous.
Okay. I'm pumping this down because I'm going to cut it.
It's so soft, it would make the best beanie. No, I'm just joking. Oh yeah, they do that. It's an animal. There you go. They wee, they go to the toilet, they do it on kids, then we wipe it on kids. Hang on. I'm just joking. So this is a squirrel glider, not a sugar glider. It's related to the sugar glider, but this one here is about twice the size of your local sugar glider. So these guys here are not found in Melbourne. Squirrel gliders like this are actually found north of the Great Dividing Range. And unfortunately, squirrel gliders like Jupiter here are actually an endangered species in Victoria. Once stretching from the South Australian and Victorian border near Eden Hope, right through the Grampians and central Victoria, right through Benalla, Shepparton, Wangaratta, and up Albury Wodonga, these guys are now completely isolated in pockets. And the largest population is still around like areas like Shepparton, Benalla, and up to Albury Wodonga. And then you have tiny little isolated pockets here and there between Bendigo and the Grampians, and one little population in the Grampians, and all the ones west of there are extinct.
Does that affect when they're isolated like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they need like more community, so they're
Yeah.
being disconnected from.
So we're actually helping work with the Sugar Glider, or the Project Platypus, which is a group out of the Grampians, and they're doing the Squirrel Glider project.
Oh my god, I wish
And
I
their
had that all.
long-term goal is to create wildlife corridors from the Grampians back to Albury Wodonga.
Get ready.
Like that's a pretty big thing to try and do. Now, does anyone know how we make wildlife corridors?
No, he's cool.
I mean, we should know. We've been doing it all morning. Planting. That's a wildlife corridor. So imagine if we had a stretch of bush that from the other side of these trees to this path, going all the way from the Grampians to Albury Wodonga. Those animals would be able to get through there safely without being eaten by foxes and cats. Now imagine this little guy getting through those trees. That's easy for a squirrel glider. They can jump from tree to tree, no problem. And if they can't jump, they glide with the skin between their legs, like a kite, up to 60 meters, which is cool. Now, he could easily glide from that tree up there across to that one, no problem. No problem at all. Glide from the top right down, and probably halfway up that tree there. But if he was to walk across the ground here, be really slow. And a fox or a cat would come along and eat him straight away. And that's why these guys have disappeared, because with farms, they basically turn their habitat into basically the ocean, and they can't swim across it. And that's the equivalent to us. So these guys don't move very well on the ground at all. They're very slow and they don't move very well. And so when we clear huge areas of land, these animals are isolated and then disappear completely.
I know, it's adorable.
And this is something we can do in our backyard for sugar gliders, lorikeets, ringtail possums, feathertail gliders, and they're all still found in the Dandenongs. Wait, don't go up my sleeve! Don't go up my sleeve! So some of these animals that we've lost here in Dandenong are still found on Mount Dandenong and up past Listerfield. So if we could create awesome wildlife corridors all the way through the Knox Council, through Dandenong Council, down to the bottom of the peninsula, we might even start getting things like greater gliders back and yellow-bellied gliders back, feather-tailed gliders and all those animals. And it starts even in our own backyard. So make sure you hit up the guys from the council for your free plants to re-vegetate your backyard. I just spent $500 on plants in my backyard and bought heaps of Banksias and other stuff, but I wanted big ones straight away. I don't like waiting. So that way I'm going to have helmeted honey eaters hopefully one day visiting my property. But these guys here are such a cool little animal, And we've got their smaller cousins living here in this area. And by planting trees in your backyard, you might actually get one living in your backyard as well. That's pretty awesome. So one of the other animals that likes to come and visit, that you might also be lucky enough to see, is our next guest.
Oh, is it going to
Daddy!
Now this is Penelope.
Daddy.
Now, one thing that we can do is make sure we plant lots of what we call endemic plants, and that's great. Endemic plants are plants that are grown and found native to the Dandenong area. That doesn't mean you can't plant other native plants, and sometimes that can be even more beneficial for species that have disappeared because it gives them an instant and year-long food source. One of the things we've found is when we try and get plants that flower all year round, even if that flowering gum trees from East Gippsland or from up in the Mallee or somewhere like that, our local wildlife benefit from that. And we've actually seen an increase in biodiversity in some areas when people go, I want heaps of local species of native plants and also other native plants from around Victoria and Australia. And that means they've got flowering native plants year round in their backyard, not just with the seasons here in Melbourne. So that actually helps animals like our fruit bats. This threatened species, and there's a big population of them near my unit farm. These guys here, don't pee on me. Penelope, you gotta hang upside down. Oh, you weed up my sleeve. Oh, you gotta get that on someone now. She did a wee up my sleeve. That's not great. Penelope, you're supposed to hang upside down when you do wees, my love. Silly batty. Now this is a grey-headed flying fox, and this is probably, in my opinion, the most important animal I've got here today. For the simple fact that this is the only long-distance pollinator we have in Melbourne. This animal can quite easily fly from here to Werribee in one night, no problem at all. A lorikeet, a butterfly, any other pollinator just can't do that. Not only that, a fruit bat like this can actually and do fly to Bairnsdale sometimes over a night or two, and our fruit bats fly up and down the east coast throughout the year. Fruit bats in Melbourne right now will be actually holidaying in the Gold Coast, up in northern New South Wales, even as far as Rockhampton, and then come back to Melbourne for summer. And all the way down and up and down that east coast, they're pollinating trees and spreading genetic diversity of those trees and plants. And that is so important. Instead of just butterflies and local stuff pollinating the same trees over and over and over, we have animals bringing in other pollen from other areas to those trees and plants, keeping our population of trees and plants healthy and stopping disease becoming rampant through our trees. And we've seen that in parts of Victoria where disease has wiped out whole sections of gum trees, and that could be part of the problem. These guys are such incredible creatures that are very misunderstood. This is a puppy of the sky. Okay, these guys are intelligent, they're incredibly emotional animals, they're very, very social, and if I don't give her affection, she gets very, very upset at me. But it's so important, guys, that you don't ever, ever touch fruit bats in the wild for any reason, or microbats. Bats are carriers of something called lysovirus, and if you get symptoms of lysovirus, you have 2 weeks left to live and there's no cure, there's no treatment. So it's really important we don't ever, ever touch fruit bats at all. But if we see My wife wonders why there's so much washing every night. So don't lick it off yourself, you grub. All right. So if you see a fruit bat that's orphaned or trapped, please call a wildlife carer, but don't touch it. You can throw a towel on it or a blanket over it so it doesn't get sitting. It's like not sitting in the sun or in the cold. But it's very important you don't touch it yourself. I'm vaccinated and I have permission from the government to work with these animals. So really important not to touch these guys in the wild while still helping them. So planting things like bottle brush, Banksias, and flowering gum trees, wattles, hakeas, things like flowering eucalypts, even waratahs, any native large flowering shrub or tree doesn't just have to be a local species. If you fill your garden with native flowering trees and plants, these guys will come and visit, and that's so important. You'll get honey eaters, you'll get lorikeets, you'll get cockatoos, you'll get butterflies, and it can really help our wildlife. But all that is not much good if we have cats running around the whole neighbourhood killing all our native wildlife. And in Australia, cats and foxes, along with deforestation, are the biggest problems we have for our mammals. Unfortunately, in Australia, we do have the highest extinction rate of mammals in the entire world. We've lost 27 species of mammal to extinction in Australia. And there's at least another handful that are very, very close right now to literally disappearing forever. Thankfully, there's lots of captive populations, and some of the local native marsupials like the smoky mouse or mammals, and a lot of these other small mammals are actually being bred at Moonlit Sanctuary and Hills of Sanctuary and being released into areas like Cranbourne Botanical Gardens. And as we've seen, the eastern bar bandicoots onto Phillip Island, which is such an incredible success. They removed every single fox. Bass Coast Council went, people must keep their cats inside. And long term, they're looking at not actually having cats on the island at all. And that would be amazing. So what we call a grandfather policy, where the cats die of old age and then people aren't allowed to get new ones. Which is awesome because they've got curlews now, which are a bird that are extinct in Melbourne that are this tall and run around on the ground. They've released them, and I saw one the other day when I was down at Phillip Island, which is so cool because they're extinct almost everywhere else in Victoria. But I would love to see these guys, or maybe the southern bettongs, come back to Melbourne. So we used to have a very similar looking animal called the southern bettong here in Dandenong before European settlement. These guys used to be bouncing around all over, and these are like tiny kangaroos. This is a brush tail bettong. You can give her rump a bit of a pat. She has a baby in the pouch at the moment.
Oh my god.
This is Barbara. Her boyfriend is Bert. We also have Barry and Beatrice. And my son named our last one, Boogers. Yep. That's what happens when you let kids name a bettong with the word B, Boogers. So we haven't named this little tiny thing in the pouch yet. I don't actually even know if it's a girl or a boy, but there's a very small little snoz sticking out there. There we go. You see the legs? Kind of. There's a hand and an elbow or something. Alright, so this is a brush tail bettong. What's really sad is this is one of my favourite little mammals. And you take this out to shows or public events and people don't even know what it is. And this species found in the drier parts of Australia, so up in Mildura to Perth, to Broome, to Katherine, Northern Territory, through half of Western Queensland and a third of New South Wales into the top of Victoria. Well, that's where they used to be found. 78% of mainland Australia, and people don't even know what it is. But that's because there's only 2,000 to 3,000 left in the wild. So these guys are almost extinct. And they used to be Australia's most widespread mammal. And there's only a few left in the wild. Luckily, there's these awesome places like now over in Mount Rothwell, where they've fenced off huge areas of habitat, gotten rid of the foxes and cats, and put the wildlife back. And that's where most of our bettongs that we breed go. So we breed a lot of these critically endangered species, and our brush-tailed bettongs often go back into the wild where there's no threat. So if we have cats at home, keeping our cats inside like I do with mine is really a good idea. My neighbour's cat was bitten by a tiger snake, another one was hit by a car. You know, my cat could run away. We have wedge-tailed eagles. In Bayswater about 10 years ago, someone's chihuahua was actually taken by a wedge-tailed eagle.
Oh, wow.
Right? So if you have your cat running around, it's exposed to so many threats and dangers. It's really important we are responsible owners. Keep your cats contained because they kill 2.5 billion native animals in Australia each year, and they're literally causing local and backyard extinctions. So an extinction locally would be, for instance, the blue wrens just disappearing from the Dandenong Council. That's a local extinction where we lose a species in an area, and then we could lose it statewide or Australia-wide. and then that would be an actual full-blown extinction. And we don't want that to happen. I love seeing so many animals in my backyard, and I want you guys to have them come back to your backyards by doing things like this and planting out those areas. And by doing that, by keeping our cats inside, controlling feral pests, putting up nest boxes, and making sure we've got habitat for these animals, we start seeing other wildlife.
He's gonna grab the owl.
Now, it feels like just a couple of weeks ago, but it was like in April, that we were on the other side of these trees doing another display for the Dandenong Creek Festival. And when we did that display and I was packing up, there were some kids looking up into a tree and I'm like, what are you guys looking at? And they're like, oh, just an owl. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, there's an owl, and it was a boobook owl. Just near the, like in the playground itself, just up here. So there is boobook owls literally using this park. All these trees that have been planted, and a lot of them have been planted in more recent years, and now providing habitat for that wildlife. So it actually really works. When we put the habitat back, the wildlife comes back. When we put up nest boxes, and you guys probably haven't even noticed it, but it's behind this wattle, on this eucalypt, there's a big hollow log that the staff have found and turned into a nest box and chucked up in the tree. And I can guarantee you someone's using it. Whether it's a brush-tail possum, lorikeets, ringtail possums, or hopefully even some sugar gliders, there's a nest box up there. And there's nest boxes all through this whole park that have been put up to actually create those habitats, because we've lost our old habitat trees. So these guys still need somewhere to nest. Making sure we don't ever use rodent poison is the best thing we can do for our owls, our kookaburras, our butcher birds, our currawongs, and all our predatory birds, because otherwise they get secondary poisoning. And there is lots of barn owls still left through this area. I've seen them in Listerfield, I've seen them at the police paddocks, I've seen them in Keysborough, so they are still in the area, and we need to protect them by not using those poisons, by putting up nest boxes and recreating the habitat. And that's one of the best things we can do in our backyards, is just make a little slice of home for those native animals that once lived there and help them come back. And that's one of the best things we can do for our future as well, because every single one of these animals, native plants, helps keep our environment healthy. And when our environment's healthy, so are we. So these guys here are one of the coolest birds around. By the way, this is Ludo, and she's a sock gremlin. So when she was growing up in the house, she would steal my socks and use them to hunt them like rats and mice, and put holes in them and hide them around the entire house. We're still finding them everywhere. And these guys are definitely, well, she doesn't like those cockatoos and corrallers. These guys are definitely a great predator to get rid of rodents around the home. I'm going to put her back. She doesn't like those other birds over there. We have one last animal to get out. Everyone's been waiting for him.
Whoa!
Come on.
Look at the owl!
Oh,
The owl went
the
down.
owl went down.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to hide. It's all right, she's attached to the glove. She can't fly away. All right, no more sausages? Good, because you won't have them. They'll be gone. All right, so this is Yera. He's an alpine dingo.
Rex smile.
These guys were once found through this region. The closest dingo population to where we stand now is probably up in Bunyip State Forest. I've seen a pure, beautiful red dingo up near Neerim and Nuji, between Powtown and Neerim. And I've also seen them up near Lake Mountain. So we still do have dingoes on the outskirts of Melbourne. A lot of people call them feral dogs. Don't you wee on the thing. I tried to wee on your chair before, actually. I tried to pull them away. Unfortunately, wild dingoes are protected in Victoria, feral dogs aren't, and you don't have to prove it's not a dingo. So there's still a lot of people hunting dingoes and calling them feral dogs. The difference between this guy and a dog is a few things. I'll show you that one. Come on, Pat. Pat go. Firstly, their behaviour is very different. This is like a mix between a dog, a cat, and a wolf. Like a cat, you can't really tell him what to do. Although with food, sometimes that's achievable. Dingoes have zero recall. If he runs off, I'm going to chase him and try and catch him. And hopefully someone catches him before he runs off. These guys here are extremely flexible. They can move their heads right up and also look down their own spine. Please don't try this at home with your sausage dog because you hear a crack and then you've got a Kransky. Here's a really chunky dingo. This is why he wasn't allowed to have sausages today, because he comes to festival and he gets that physique. But normally they're very thin, they've got a lean body, and wherever their head can fit, the rest of their body can actually go. So they get down burrows, in hollow logs, in rocky crevices, and they're really, really good at worming their way into places like that after prey or finding den spots. They're good at climbing trees as long as they're not vertical, and they can actually climb up branches. And I've even seen video of a dingo walking across the top of a chain link fence. Like, that is just insane, like an acrobat. So these guys are incredible. When he wanted to get in with the female during COVID, he chewed through basically tennis court mesh fencing. So he chewed through it while I was in Sydney. And when I got back, he was in with the female and he'd actually pulled the fence apart. So we had puppies in the middle of COVID, which was not planned. He could have waited a year or two, but no, he was pretty keen. So dingoes are a really important apex predator. We don't have many apex predators left around Melbourne. Powerful owls, wedge-tailed eagles in the Dandenongs, lakes monitors are still found around the area. And someone did actually see a tiger quoll up near King Lake Hillsville area, which is pretty cool. So we still have a couple of apex predators left. And while dingoes would never come back to the suburbs, that wouldn't work. We can encourage some of those birds of prey and other animals to come around. I hope you guys have enjoyed the talk. Please make sure you wash your hands. Remember to recycle, reduce, reuse, rethink, our favourite one, replant, and respect wildlife. And that way we will start seeing more in our backyards. Thanks heaps, guys. We'll see you later, alligator.